League educational content is filled with advice that sounds super insightful and helpful, but is not at all how high elo players actually win games. For example, how many times have you heard something like, good players don't chase random kills, they prioritize objectives instead? Well, here's a game from a rank 1 player called Davemon. His Talion Misfortune looked to push mid and get 2 towers while he was fighting a random skirmish in bot lane.
Why do they not just walk down and get 4 kills? I don't get it. Like, yes, I understand tier 2 towers, but like, we can get the kills and the towers. We get the kills as a team, and then we do this play as a team.
It's just funny to hear a rank 1 player complain that his teammates are over prioritizing objectives instead of rotating to a random fight over nothing. It's the exact opposite of what you'd expect from a top tier player, and I kind of agree with him, especially because I've seen firsthand what this type of advice does to the player base. My favorite low elo moment to this day is a game where I got a quadra kill by not rotating to dragon, and my Master Yi had a mental breakdown. He basically just rage quit and AFK'd the whole game because I got a quadra kill instead of helping him get a single dragon. It's genuinely insane. If someone ever gets a quadra kill in high elo, you usually just want to FF the game. It's not black and white like coaches or guides make it out to be. Sometimes kills are really valuable and sometimes objectives matter more. It just depends. If there's a Kha'Zix running around with 10 kills one-shotting your entire team, getting 2 dragons is probably not going to stop him. And that's what I dislike the most. There's so much random advice out there that sounds good on paper, like play for objectives, but doesn't actually translate to helping you win more games, and in fact could be hurting the way you actually view League and your performance. So I want to cover the advice I hear the most often that I really disagree with, and strong side versus weak side is one of the worst things I've ever heard. It's a pretty straightforward concept. Coaches or guides, like even our own videos in the past, will tell you that playing around strong members on your team is good. If you make a play around someone who is actually strong, your play is more likely to work. Likewise, if you group around your weak teammates, your play is more likely to fail, so you should stay away from them. Basically, you should always try to be on the side of the map with your strong teammates. I'm not saying this is 100% wrong, there is some truth to it, but it's definitely not a rule high elo players follow that regularly. In fact, here's the clip that actually inspired me to make this video. I was watching NattyNat, a rank 1 jungler, and his Fiora just died again to the Quinn 1v1. When he presses tab and looks at the scoreboard, you would think, okay, we should stay the hell away from Fiora, play around Jhin, or maybe Orianna, she's also doing okay-ish. So maybe we should position on the bot side of the map and play around Drake around these 2 laners instead. Then Fiora types, guys, let's just kill Quinn. And then both NattyNat and his Leona as jungle support, the playmaking roles in high elo, are both topside. They're actively playing around the feeding Fiora. Challenger players mostly just try to go to the area of the map where they think they can make a play. It doesn't matter who's strong or weak, it just depends. And this advice is even worse in low elo because it makes even less sense. You shouldn't avoid pathing to the fed Draven lane. If I'm a mid laner and I see my own bot lane is losing and the enemy Draven has 5 kills, I'm still probably going to go down there because that's the easiest lane to roam to ever. That Draven is going to mindlessly shove every single wave no matter what, and he is the freest shutdown. Why would I avoid going down there? Now what you should actually avoid is 1, awkward transitions like this one, and 2, a really famous quote by Dopa. Dopa, unless you've lived under a rock your whole life, is one of the most revered solo queue players of all time, and he has this really famous quote that people I coach often remind me about. There is no such thing as an aggressive or defensive player, there is only good and bad players. This sounds like a wisdomy old man giving great insight type of quote until you think about it for more than 5 seconds. Players often bring this up to me when trying to figure out what the correct play in a certain situation is, but I find this to be pointless as there's just so many different ways to play League. So for example, Davemon, a player we just looked at before, is one of the most aggressive players I've ever laned against. He plays Pyke mid, Akshan, Kiana, and he's always looking to play aggressive in lane, look for solo kills, and go crazy on the map with high kill count games. On the other hand, this is Cupik. If I had to describe him, he is a Gathering Storm enthusiast. He's a control mage or a Sona type of player. He avoids volatile situations, always runs a greedy scaling setup, and is a very consistent low death count type of player. Both of them have hit rank 1 on the ladder around the same season despite having very different approaches to the game. My opinion is that everyone tends to have a preferred style of gameplay that they're better at and that they also enjoy more. And this might be a crazy thing to say these days, but players tend to perform better when they're actually having fun and playing the way they like to. I am personally a very control oriented type of player, and if you see me at the Magic the gathering table, I'll be the guy playing a counterspell every single turn. So I tend to perform much better when I play a very slow, controlling style where I slowly choke the life out of my opponent, in game of course, so my main champions tend to reflect that. I main Malzahar, Twisted Fate, and Lulu. That's right, I'm a terrible person. If I tried to teach my style to a Yasuo or Talon player, even if it technically works, they would likely hate it, get bored, and play much worse. That's why I really like encouraging my students to learn their own style. And the key detail here is to learn the difference between objective fundamentals versus playstyle. An objective fundamental is something you will never hear any top player argue against. Examples of this would be when and how to slow push, cross mapping, fighting on item spikes, and stuff like that. These are fundamentals you cannot argue against. They're just objectively kinda true. On the other hand, let's say your Rise and Baron is spawning in 1 minute. You could group with your team to 5v5, or you can split and let them fend for themselves 4v5. I don't really care what the theoretically correct answer here is. It is much more effective for climbing to do the thing that you are good at. So if you're good at causing chaos and like playing that way, go split. Or if you think you're better in coordinated fights, go teamfight. Both are completely fine options. There is no correct way to play League yet because the game is too complex and random. So the simplest way to improve is first learn the objective fundamentals, then find a high-elo creator that seems to think and play in a way that you prefer. They do not have to be the best, just find high-elo players that think very similarly to you and copy them. For example, I do not like how Faker plays. I don't care that he's won 6 world championships and he's the GOAT. I just dislike his playstyle. It is definitely not my vibe. So I tend to perform much better when I copy players like Chovy or even Nemesis who play closer to how I prefer to play. That's why we also make sure to have multiple different perspectives for climbing efficiently. For example, we partnered with Coach Chippy's, one of the most respected top lane coaches out there, but we also have our own top lane course for players who prefer a different playstyle. It's the same for ADC. We have our standard course, but we also have a course where I coach the player to Diamond, which is mostly focused on split pushing as an ADC, which is a perspective you're not really going to get anywhere else besides me, I think. We also have a huge variety of jungle courses, and we've also partnered with Coach Rogue for a macro course while also having our own perspective on macro. That's all while also having some of the top challenger players showing you how to carry in your own elo, uploading pure educational commentaries weekly. That's why we're positive we are by far the best educational platform on the internet for improving at League, simply because we have the most resources possible for players to improve, which is important because, like I said, every player is different, and finding content that fits your style is critical for your success. We're so confident that we have the right tools to help you improve that we offer a money-back guarantee if you don't actively climb while using our service. If we somehow have nothing to offer you, that's completely fine. You take absolutely no risk, you get your money back, and you can then go find another educational source that might be more beneficial to you. So if you want to start climbing fast, use the discount link below to sign up to SkillCapped. Moving on, the next piece of advice that I think makes very little sense is using your F keys. This is especially true for junglers because you would always hear stuff like, as you do camps, you need to cycle your F keys to get intel on every single lane so you know how to adapt your route to impact the map or something. What's funny though is that if you tune into any top tier jungler, for example here's Canyon, possibly the greatest jungler of all time, he is just staring at his own camps, not scouting around at all. I think there's quite a few reasons for this, and I'd actually advise most players to not use F keys all that often. First, the positives do not outweigh the negatives. The biggest positive of using your F keys is information gathering, but not all information is useful. Sometimes you're bot side and you scout your top laner. Now what? 99% of the time, the information you gather isn't going to change what you were going to do anyway. So there is a slight positive to getting information, but now let's talk downsides. First and foremost, it is super try hard and can quickly burn you out. It is so much effort to constantly pan your camera everywhere. The best way to improve at League is simply to play a lot, and you're going to burn out quicker and play far less if you're spamming F keys omega tryharding every single game. Secondly, it is important to focus on what's happening in front of you most of the time. So as a top laner, you're not going to randomly F key in the middle of lane to randomly look somewhere else, right? And even as a jungler, the #1 skill to being a really good jungler is often just killing your camps quite efficiently, which is why high elo junglers are hyper focused on themselves rather than looking around. Being 10 seconds faster on my full clear is going to matter way more than getting random information on the map. And finally, you can get 99% of the benefits of F keys by just looking at your minimap. If I see my teammate's icon on top of the enemy icon and my teammate is losing HP, I know I should pan my camera over there because there's probably something going on. That's what Natty Nat did here in that earlier example. He had his camera on himself farming, then the second he sees Fiora fighting, he pans his camera over. The next thing to look out for is, let's say I'm Twisted Fate mid and I see Ezreal's icon randomly shift. That probably means he's used his E and I have a 20-second window to kill him with ult. Here's a great example of that. Catavault, another rank 1 player, looks to push top lane, and I know for a fact he is glaring at his minimap because the second that Alistar's icon appears to dash, he's already moving his camera to the fight. Then he realizes his karma is likely fine, so he positions his camera back to himself and focuses on pushing. Then the moment that Kai'Sa's icon comes in dashing, he instantly moves his camera again and rotates to the fight. Basically, the way most top tier players actually gather information is just through the minimap. They often just keep their screens on what they're doing, and if they see action on the map, then they might use their F key or mouse over there. You definitely don't need to use F keys to be good at this game, as most pros don't use them all that much in the first place. Besides Faker, of course, but like, he's Faker, okay? He makes no sense. And in the same way that F keys are overhyped, so is players telling you that you need 10 CS per minute to be successful. I see this problem all the time in low elo, players trying to copy high elo players from YouTube videos. Wow, he has 10 CS per minute and has a ton of kills. I need to do that too if I want to climb. And I just watch so many low elo players not understand what's happening, and so they try to get to the 10 CS per minute mark and they're just AFK farming the entire match doing nothing. If we look at Faker's account, here's a realistic view of what your CS score should look like. He averages like 8 to 9 CS per game, sometimes dipping to a 7 average. Here's what's actually going on. Proper league macro is about making plays based on pushing side waves most of the time. So you push side, then you make a play. When you're winning, you can do that all of the time, because when your teammates are doing well, you can push side lane safely because you know they're likely fine without you. And if you're catching every single side lane wave, plus a jungle camp here and there, you will probably have 10 to 11 CS per minute. But when your team is either even or losing, you can't afford to leave them alone for too long. You're gonna have to sack a wave every now and then to join them, so you probably won't get perfect CS. This is usually what I try to teach players. Don't focus too much on the actual amount of CS you get. Instead, focus on putting pressure on the map by constantly pushing minion waves, but make sure to also react to map plays when needed. If you average around 7 to 9 CS per game, and you still feel like you're a part of a lot of the action on the map, this is usually a good indication that you're playing pretty well. But you're probably not performing well every single game. Sometimes you're running it down and you're just feeding kills over and over. Here is one of the worst pieces of advice that actually doesn't come from other high elo players, but low elo players trying to help each other out instead. It goes something like this. One of the best skills to learn is how to get carried when you're losing. You won't be the main character every game. Control your ego and know when to play safe and win off your teammates. I absolutely detest this advice for two different reasons. Let's start with the first, mentality. You are not going to climb to Emerald or Diamond or whatever elo you want by winning a single game and getting 20 LP because you played safe and got carried. You're going to climb by being better than everyone in your elo, and you do that by constantly limit testing and playing to improve. Having no faith in yourself and giving up an entire game of practice because you don't want to get flamed for feeding is not how you get better. Secondly, and more importantly, it's not even correct to play safe. When you are behind, dying matters less. You give less gold, less experience, and you have no shutdown, so you shouldn't be afraid of taking risks, because if things go wrong, it's not like they get that much worse. It's your teammates who are ahead who are the ones who need to be playing safer. This doesn't mean that you just run into your opponents and die on repeat, of course, but if you think there's a 15 to 30% chance of a play working, you shouldn't be afraid to take those odds. This is actually exactly how the boss plays most of the time. He will completely into lane, giving his opponent multiple kills, but he's not afraid to keep taking fights he thinks he can maybe win because it gives him a chance to come back. The plays keep going wrong because they had a low chance of working, and sure, he falls further and further behind, but eventually he might get lucky and randomly outplay his opponent, and now he's back in the game. That's how most good players actually play when they're behind. You take risks to come back into the game because you're already behind anyway, so who cares if you keep dying? And now for a quick final tip that I really hate. I don't care how many videos or coaches tell you that mid-tier 1 tower is super important for opening up the map or whatever other nonsense. You should stop randomly grouping and sieging the tower, risking the entire game for no reason. Mid-tier 1 matters, it is nice when it goes down, but the game isn't going to magically, dramatically change when you take it, so don't lose your mind trying to break it. Anyway, remember at SkillCapped, we have by far the highest variety and content to help you improve. If you want to climb fast, use the discount link below. See you next time.